Pastor Mai, good afternoon. Douglas City Council today on Mannin Line. Leader of the council is Devon Watson. He's a councillor for East Ward. And as the leader, well, he's the frontman for the council. So if you want to find out anything about the council, if you live in and around Douglas, what would you like to ask the leader of the council? Call 66 13 68, text or WhatsApp 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com. Douglas City Council today. And before we go meet them, just a quick word. Next Tuesday was supposed to be our outside broadcast from the Isle of Man prison. Obviously, events have overtaken us because the Lord of Man, King Charles III, will be on the island next Tuesday, so that's been postponed for the moment, and we'll be. I'll let you know when the rescheduled date is for the outside broadcast from the prison. So, Devon Watson, Pastor Mike, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
How long have you been in charge now, Devon?
Just over a year.
Okay. Was it what you thought it would be?
It's actually so much better. I mean, I didn't realise that. I suppose it's one of those things where you can actually achieve quite a lot if you have the ambition to do so. So we've set up a youth council. We've decided to put about £1 million or so into rebuilding parks, or 8 parks all across Douglas, to give families decent play facilities. We're about to sign a friendship agreement with Dublin, which is going to be great for the city, building links between the capital of Ireland and the capital of Man. And we're on track to halve the social housing waiting list by the end of this year. We've already reduced that number down from about 250, 260 down to about 213. With the opening of Williston Apartments, we've got a few new projects that I'm really excited about that'll probably be announced fairly soon, assuming we get cooperation from central government. So a lot of these really big systemic problems that we face are not caused by a lack of resources, and they aren't caused by a lack of talent on the island, but sometimes they're caused by a lack of ambition, and there's still so much more to do. So I'm really excited to continue and crack on with the job.
How did you get the social housing list down?
So a part of that would be, so there's 2 main reasons. We've halved the number of properties that were empty by the council. People have already spoken about this for a very long period of time. Those are empty council properties due to previous lack of maintenance, previous decisions made back as far back as like the 80s or the 90s. So we've begun to tackle those. And over the past 5 years, we've implemented this Void Plus standard where every new council property, before it gets allocated, it's going to be at the highest possible standard. And what that does is, by investing in maintenance 5 years ago, we now have better maintenance records today. Sometimes you have to sort of make that medium or long-term decision, break out of the short-term decision making that a lot of politicians typically tend to fall into. So that's one way of doing it. The other one is by building new property, like the brand new Williston Apartments. And a combination of these 2 measures, building new and maintaining better, can bring down that list.
It's fairly obvious hearing you talk. We've heard you talk on Mannin Line and other programmes. You're very much an advocate of social housing, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm also an advocate of first-time buyers housing, improved renters' rights in the private sector. I think that housing isn't just a situation that affects those who are in housing, or those who suffer from lack of housing, or those who can't afford housing. It affects all of us in the fact that you have to have a much higher living wage in order to sort of meet people's living costs. You need to pay much more in commercial rent, which filters down into the rest of the economy. The housing crisis is a thing that's dragging young people away from the Isle of Man and towards cities where you can pay a similar rent but get much better sort of amenities like Manchester or Liverpool. So this is an issue of national economic security and a matter of national economic survival.
Okay. So are Lord Street flats sold?
Well, we're in the process. Douglas Council has done what it's needed to do in this process, but as with many commercial deals, this Lord Street Flats, as we know, was built in the 1930s as a clearance for slum housing. And it's been an incredibly difficult site for any prospective buyer to develop. But I mean, we're in the final stages of getting that work started on that place, or sort of working with our partners in that space. I kind of want to be able to disclose more.
Right.
I mean, I'm not quite sure how the commercial details in this is one of the worst things working in government. You're really excited to chat about certain things because Lord Street Flats, if developed well, it's right in the heart of the city centre. It could become such a great asset. It could become really, really attractive right by the quayside. So I really want people to sort of watch this space.
I don't want you to get you in trouble, but if anything were to happen, would it be happening fairly shortly?
I'm not sure, right? That would have to depend on our partners, and I can't really speak for them and the sort of other side of that commercial transaction.
Okay.
I mean,
and when it happens, will we know how much they paid for it?
of course, yeah. I mean, it's I think the tricky thing about these older sites is that sometimes you take on an old building, sometimes it costs more than the building itself is worth. We put it out to the private market, we put it out to the public market, and we had a few offers back, and obviously we chose the one that had the best mix of social value and economic value.
Okay, Marathon Drive, there were 6 units up there for sale, I believe, at one time.
Yes,
What's happening now?
100%. So yeah, so those 6 units, I think they've been sold now, and now you're going to be progressing with plans on sort of moving along with the rest of the other ones. We've spoken with every single tenant, myself, the housing directors, and several housing officers. We went and made sure that the people who are most informed about the process are the tenants who live in that road. They are the key stakeholders here. They're the ones who matter. So we've spoken with them. Everyone seems to be fairly comfortable with the process. And what we've done is we've started selling these properties. We've taken that money for a deposit to put down on 2 to 3 times as many properties elsewhere in another city centre apartment site, and that'll free up 3-bedroom homes as people downsize and bring down that waiting list even further, while also pumping new homes into the private sector market.
Okay, let's get to the phones now. We've got Mark with us, first of all. Mark, hello. Mark, you're live with Devon Watson.
Good afternoon, Andy, and good afternoon, Devon Watson. I'm phoning up. I actually a tenant of yours up at Thomas Keg Apartments. Do excuse me, I'm not feeling too well today. There's a big issue with parking. There's so many flats with limited parking. It is a permit scheme on the complex. It's only for permit holders who can park. There's no parking for visitors or Manx care. It is a big issue to some tenants who don't have their family members park on here because they can get a ticket for parking. It wasn't taken into account when the premises was being built that this could actually be an issue on the complex. And I've been fighting for the last 4 years now, dealing with the mayor and MHK to bring the issue forward, that something needs to be done. The wardens are doing a good job by catching people who are parking, but they're not able to be on the complex 24/7. There are signs around the complex which inform people to read and be responsible where they park their vehicles. And vehicles are being parked where there's a gate or low curbs. It's not, it's bad behaviour by people who just want to park the car but are not being contacted or ticketed for doing so.
Okay, so
like
Mark,
see...
what's your question for Devon Watson?
Well, my question is I'd like to see some more action being taken. I'm being told that the warden's hands are tied by the information the council has. But I'd like to see some action from housing, because housing know who these people are. They know which tenants who live in the apartments. They can write to them. We have had letters explaining that visitors are not permitted to park on the complex. It's only for permit holders only. And it's causing a big issue. And some tenants are getting really knocked up about, obviously myself complaining. I have a disability. I don't have a car, but I don't let any of my visitors park on the car park because I know what the car park
All right.
is.
Okay, Devon Watson.
Yeah, so I think that there's a few issues. Thank you, Mark, for calling in. And I really want to thank you for being so respectful and measured in the way that you sort of answer this question. And I suppose that this is the difficult thing about building on brownfield sites in the city centre, is that we have to make a trade-off, right? So we could have one fewer apartment block in that space in order to accommodate more parking, or we could have underground parking. And what that would do is that would take the £200,000 flat that's been sort of allocated to tenants and that, and would bring that cost up to about 300k, right? Or we could have 24 hours supervision on these sites, and that would also incur an additional cost. I think it's one of those where, to some extent, we have to adjust our expectations about city centre apartments and city centre flats, is that in exchange for the convenience of living right in the heart of the city centre, maybe you're going to have to make a trade-off in terms of having less per person parking. And it's not that it wasn't considered, it's just there's a premium on land in the city centre. So if you have to choose between a parking lot or a block of flats, you're going to choose a block of flats. If you chat to any private sector tenant in the city centre, I myself rent land, rent a home in the city centre, no space for a car. The expectation that there will always be a parking space there is hard. There's just a constraint of land. But we are trying to do things about parking. We would like to see better enforcement of certain standards, at the same time a compassionate approach. So a mother popping in for like milk or something at a shop nearby doesn't get prosecuted. Everyone's had those issues with sort of parking fines. And at the same time, we've made parking on weekends at Shawsbrough car park free. So this is a big measure that was asked for by businesses in order to relieve some of that parking strain. But ultimately, there is going to be a trade-off between the convenience of living in the city centre and allocating land toward sort of cheap car parking.
What do you say about people then who flout the rules? If there are rules there and visitors can't park, what happens when visitors do park continually? And obviously they're teeing off people like Mark.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what Mark is responding to is a very real idea of fairness. And I think that's where a lot of us get one. I mean, I like the fact that he's someone who doesn't own a car himself, but he cares about this issue of fairness. And I think when it comes down to issues of fairness, we need to have better enforcement. So we can chat to the team about the enforcement, see if there's a trade-off to be made there. And at the same time, sort of have a conversation with those tenants who do sort of not always adhere to the rule. Parking tensions and parking issues affect everybody in the middle of Douglas. It's really hard. And the government needs to do more, primarily by investing a lot more in alternative modes of transport, so people have sort of freer options, including more frequent, cheaper public transport would probably do some way toward alleviating just a few parking spaces in town, maybe investing a bit more in alternative means of transport. It's essential.
Okay, Mark?
Well, I think the buses are actually quite fine. I use the buses all the time, so there isn't an issue with the buses or the transport. But as usual, the council put it onto the government's hands. Now, we know we've got a bad administration. I've been in contact all the time with the MHKs. I think every one of them should be knocked out. I don't think they're working for the people. But Devon, the council has its responsibilities to all its tenants that are in the building, and it's unfair that other people are parking. I appreciate the frustration, but you should not be allowed to build flats without sufficient parking, at least one car per apartment. And I'd just like to bring up a couple of issues, if I may, as well. I've also been in quite considerable contact regarding with housing to have this, whoever thought of putting a bin store under people's apartments, the stench from that bin store stinks. I've requested housing to actually have the floor jet washed because it's filthy in there. I don't know if you can get that sorted for me, Devon. It's just the stench from there is rising up to people's windows.
Okay, those 2 points.
Okay, yeah, so two things. One, if something smells bad, 100% we'll get that sorted. We'll chat to the housing team today. But, I mean, secondly, I'm going to have to push back. Not every single tenant is going to get a car parking space. Straight up, that's just never going to happen, right? I mean, and the same way is that when people were moved out of Lord Street flats, they were told, generally, people who were in Lord Street flats previously were not all going to have car parking spaces. No private sector tenant gets the same right to a guaranteed car parking space in the city centre. There just is not the space. We could demolish a block of flats to build additional car parking, but it's just not realistic, Mark, and I'm sorry, and I'm not here to blame the government or sell you dreams or promise you something that's not realistic, but in order to double the amount of car parking spaces there on that site, we'd either have to demolish private housing or we'd have to purchase additional land for several £1 million. It's just not an adequate use of resources. Essentially, but what we do have in order to accommodate tenants is we do have a transfer program. So people who are desperate for car parking and need car parking can sort of transfer with tenants who live in a more suburban area and they can get a home that has car parking. And tenants who live in that area who want to downsize, maybe don't have a car, don't have as many cars, are able to move there. That transfer program works exceptionally well and it's about matching people with the properties that meet their needs. Okay. I myself don't have a car. I would love to live in a place like this. And it's about sort of having that mix of needs. But ultimately, if you're building in the city centre, you aren't going to have one car parking space per person. And all of the private sector tenants listening to this, or private sector homeowners, they themselves don't have this access themselves.
Okay, well, that was said from the beginning, wasn't it, about car parking spaces? Thank you, Mark. It leads me on to Christine's point, and this is about parking as well. And it's about the Williston estate and people with motorhomes.
Yeah.
And obviously, Williston was never built for people having 2 or 3 vehicles, and it gets congested. What's the council's thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately this comes down to sort of a respect and responsibility for one's neighbours. I think that perhaps over the medium and long term, the council has to look at sort of establishing facilities. We can't just sort of chastise people for... I want to have a camper van myself one day, right? Like, these things are great, particularly in this weather. People want to be able to get out and enjoy this. And rather than saying that motorhome users are people who... We need to sort of create facilities to accommodate that there is a reality that these things exist, and they probably long term does need to be a solution to sort of cater for these folks and cater for the existence of these vehicles.
And obviously, when Williston was built, it was never thought that people would have 2 or possibly 3 cars.
No, I mean, and we used to go from a world where people had maybe 1 car per household, a car was a luxury item, and now you typically tend to have about 1 car per adult. And this is a tough thing, because I sympathize with people who battle with car parking. I would love to own a car myself, right? But it just really isn't that space for it. So we need to find ways of improving broader transport options. I know a lot of people use the bus. I know the bus is good, but it needs to be a more viable option, particularly for families. And it needs to have greater coverage and maybe greater speed. So I think it's one of those where many cities have faced this problem. This is where Liverpool and Manchester were back in the 90s in terms of these battles over car parking.
Where will the new social housing be? Have you identified sites?
Yes, so we're currently in talks with government at the moment about a potential site in the city centre where we can build.
You can't tell us, can you?
I'm trying. The thing is, though, I don't want to get anyone into sort of hot water, but I'm desperate to sort of get that scheme out there, get that spoken about. I mean, that scheme itself should about halve that social housing waiting list. It does have car parking, which is great. Maybe not as much as people would like, but it is also like a site of sort of tremendous sort of social value. It's got a lot of greenery, and I think that's something that we were desperate for in the city centre.
Okay, if you were to get the nod today, how soon would it be that you'd be taking in tenants?
But between 18 months and 2 years, if we were to get the nod exactly today, and we could get construction beginning today. So that would be the thing. Is though, if the government and the councils and local authorities and local planning and businesses and everyone in the country was really, really mobilised about housing, over the next few years, we could solve a huge chunk of the housing crisis. It's just about aligning everyone's needs and incentives on this issue. Because the thing is, though, building new housing near some people is something that some folks are going to object to. It's going to be something that some folks might not like because, as you say, competition over things like parking. But I think that we really need to mobilize as a society to deal with this problem. After the war, we had a similar thing. We dealt with it then, and we can deal with it today.
Okay, let's get to the phones again. Howard's with us. Hi, Howard. You're live with Devon Watson.
Hello, Andy. Hello, Devon. Just one question with, it seems to be fallen back in. About 18 months ago, the council, they decided to borrow 1.6 million to develop a children's play area on the promenade and then include refurbishing the Queen's Promenade end of the promenade.
Yes.
At the moment, there's nothing materialised, with the corporation holding back, saying they're waiting for the government to build the retaining sea wall. What the question is, was that money, the 1.6 million, was that obtained? Is it in the coffers in the bank of the Douglas Corporation? And are you paying interest on it if it is in that bank account?
No. So we don't borrow money for a project that we don't initiate, or that we've delayed on. So that approval delivery, or getting those loans, is when that approval is done, and once all of the petition processes and all those legal processes are done. So what we've done is that approval was done in order to give the council permission. As councillors, we've given the council permission to begin and initiate that program. So what I'd love to do is build new play facilities on the prom, and that is something that we're going to be doing on a temporary basis. So as of council today, that's something that we're going to be going and getting some play facilities there. But it would also be a massive waste of public resources to invest heavily there when there aren't the sea protections to do so. We had a fantastic meeting with the DOI yesterday. I think we do have a path forward on how we can get both those protected, but also get the rest of the sunken gardens. The sunken gardens are critical heritage that we have to protect from storms that get worse every year. So once those walls are erected, then we can make that full investment there, make sure that ratepayers' money is protected.
Where's the wall going to?
So we would like that wall to run along that end of the prom all the way through to where the sea terminal is. Maybe that wall can be set back so people have an additional view. I know the wall has been something that has given people quite a bit of view. So I think the most important thing is both council and DOI work together to make sure that any protection or defence scheme is able to meet people's needs.
Okay, Howard?
Yeah, the gardens themselves, Andy knows, I served my apprenticeship with Douglas Corporation Parks Department a long time ago, and those floods were happening then. And if you look at postcards, in the Victorian days, the floods were and the storms were coming. So this, I think, is a lot of palaver with the climate change and all the bits that go with it. And it's a money-making scheme where people are going to advocate building these things like your walls and everything. But I've suggested in the past that the walls on the promenade gardens, they have a void behind them to allow people to sit in there for comfort. But why was there not a central core put in that wall and the stone built around it, which would take the brunt of the storm and protect the gardens and protect the walls? And they've fallen down that many times now, and nothing's ever been thought of to do that. So, you know, it seems logical to strengthen the walls,
okay,
as opposed to wait and possibly never get done.
So a few things there. Money-making scheme. So councillors do receive expenses. That tops out at $1,000 or $2,000 a year. But no one's getting a salary for this. So I'm not making any money off advocating for walls. I'd rather talk about housing, right? Or car parking or something, right? Like, this is not my core priority. So I'm not benefiting financially from this. There's no council worker who's benefiting financially from this. This is resources we'd rather direct elsewhere, and this is resources that UI would rather direct elsewhere. Secondly, storms did exist back in the 60s and the 50s and the 80s and the 90s and today, but they are getting worse. And this is not my opinion. This is just the hydrological surveys. The overtopping is getting worse. And because there's more heat and more intensity, even if you don't use the word climate change, the level of which bad storms come in and destroy things is getting more intense. So that last time those walls were broken down and destroyed, that wasn't even a named storm. Those were just seasonal high tides mixed with unfavorable wind conditions that broke through those walls. When named storms come in, that used to be a 1 in every 10, 1 every 20 year event, and now it's a 1 in every 5, maybe 1 every 6 year event. These things are getting more frequent, and when they are happening, they're worse. But why don't we just strengthen the walls, right? Well, right beneath those walls is the Iris sewage system. We could drill directly down into that, but then you have a lot of sewage issues that end up emerging. That isn't really great for the vibe. That's not really great for the area. And also at the same time, the Flood Management Act makes it very clear that flood defences are not the purview directly of a local authority. We wouldn't get petition approval even to build something of that nature. So that's why we're working with the DOI to establish those defences to make sure that those walls are safe.
Okay, Douglas Promenade, though, is iconic.
Yeah.
And people have seen it in that state for a long time. As you say, the appearance changes because of things getting a bit tatty every now and again and storms and what have you. But are people right to be worried that you will be changing the look of Douglas Promenade?
I think what we want to do is we want to preserve the heritage of Douglas Promenade, right? I mean, when the Victorians built certain aspects of it, the vast majority of the gardens are remaining exactly unchanged, right? But I also think that when they built them, back in the day. They didn't build them as specifically heritage asset. They're building them because that was the most modern thing at the time. And I think what we have to do is we have to be willing to do that. My day-to-day work as an archaeologist. The thing I care about more than anything else is heritage and history. People love those gardens, right? And these are things we want to protect. By building the wall, it sounds a bit like Trump here, but like by building the wall, what we want to do is we want to protect these assets and make sure that not only my children, but my grandchildren can also enjoy the same facilities that people enjoyed back 50, 60 years ago.
Okay, Howard?
Yeah, just going back to the question of the finances going in. So you haven't had any financial input into the town council then with regard to the promenade play area and whatnot. So there's no financial input there and being held in a bank.
No, we aren't gonna do that, right? Like it's not like there's a big vault of money that we've borrowed for this project and it's not initiated. If a project isn't done and if a project isn't initiated, it's not something that we really crack on with. It's just not something that makes it's not really something that
Okay.
would make sense.
Okay, Howard?
Yeah, no, it's just as you've already got another one in the pipeline, the Nobles Park, which was initially given to the people of Douglas by Henry Bloom Noble. It seems to be moving over more to a commercial enterprise and gradually diminishing in its general usage.
Okay, what do you mean by commercial enterprise, Howard?
Well, the TT's taken over a large percentage of it. Then there's gone various aspects of the football, etc. It was given as a park area and for the people of Douglas, not just for specifics.
Okay. All right, Howard, we appreciate that. Thanks, Howard. I just want to wrap up the children's playground. When's it going to be ready?
So children's playground, it depends on council approval. If we get that through today, because it's temporary, or we say temporary, but essentially what we mean is by mobile, is that we can install it then, we can move it around to other areas once we begin work on the other thing. So hopefully next year, the people will be able to, next summer, probably long before then, get that done. Obviously, I want to set expectations that are realistic, but by this time next summer, we definitely want to have something there.
Okay. And Howard brought up Nobles Park.
Yeah, 100%. So that's why we've engaged in this consultation. The consultation, we approach consultations not just as a have your say, and then we take your opinions and then discard them. Your say when it comes down to Nobles Park and what people want informs us. This is why we put that consultation out there. We want to see what people want to see with it. We agree that initially this area should be for complete and total public use. I agree. I've got my same concerns that the TT is becoming commercialized and becoming inaccessible for ordinary people. I want to see that our public facilities can have access to anyone. And that's why we want to improve this asset and sort of really invest in it, improving some of the sports and pitch facilities, making sure that the people who live in that area who don't have their own gardens have all of the same amenity that a garden would provide. And I think there's been a little bit of misconception put out there by certain parts of the media to say that the whole point of this is to build a giant new grandstand area. Absolutely not, right? Like, this is part of the consultative process. We want people to have their say. This is one proposal among many, and essentially our plans have come from the feedback of about 300 people who fed in. We put those out again to the broader public so we can get their views. This is a democratic institution. This is a democratic process. And what you want to see happen at the Nobles Park is what we're going to implement.
Okay. So, and again, there are cynics out there who say that when any public body puts out a consultation document, it means they've made their mind up already, but they just want to know what people think.
Well, no, because at the end of the day, I don't want to invest ratepayers' money into an asset that the ratepayers don't want. Ultimately, this is something that belongs to the people of Douglas, as Howard correctly states. This is a thing that was gifted to the people of Douglas, and the people of Douglas are the people who have to determine how it goes. At the same time, all of us councillors, and we all do this because we are doing this out of a sense of civic responsibility. I want to make sure that these facilities are as widely used as possible. We're going to be making a massive announcement about changing some rules around parks in the next month or so. Really, really exciting stuff. really hope that people sort of stay tuned on that one. But we really want to sort of democratize the public space, make sure that not only is it for everyone, but everyone has a say in how these spaces are constructed and how these spaces are used.
Okay, and I hope this isn't the one that you were talking about that maybe changes in parks, but this is a message in and a question from Wolfie, who says, why do you discriminate against well-behaved dog owners? Why is places like Derby Square now not accessible to dogs because of a few badly behaved dog owners obviously letting their dogs mess? The majority of dog owners don't let this happen.
Wolfie, I 100% agree with you. I mean, and I don't want to just agree with the callers of the Mannin Line, right? I mean, naturally, but ultimately, I do think that historically, we've had a culture that says you go into a park, it says no ball games, no dogs, no fun, right? And I think what we've been doing is we've been trying to build a consensus within the council to say, how can we look at these rules and how can we adjust them? And we're probably going to be making an announcement in about a month or so about how we alter some of our bylaws, how we can be a bit less restrictive. I think what we also have to recognize is the culture around dogs has changed quite significantly. Like dogs are now allowed in restaurants, dogs are allowed to sort of in most spaces, dogs are part of the family for many, and it's really important that sort of dog owners and dogs themselves also have access to green space. They're animals and they also deserve that basic right. But at the same time, that needs to come with an element of responsibility, right? So if people are given access to these spaces, they have to make sure that they don't do things just like fouling. We have to make sure that those enforcement mechanisms are in place. So it's about giving something back to people, but also that element of responsibility has to be there. Last thing you want to have is a kid playing in the park and then
toxoplasmosis, things like
exactly.
that. Yeah. Okay, we understand. Judith's on now. Judith, you're live with Devon Watson, the councillor.
Hello, my name is Judith and I was Brown, and I'm the great-great-granddaughter of James Brown. Now, I was at the opening of the James Brown Apartments in Williston, and they are fabulous. In fact, I was the one who drew the curtain across the plaque outside. But there are two mistakes in the information on that plaque. James was the grandson of the slave, not the son, and he was never elected an MHK because he wanted the independence of being the editor-owner of the Isle of Man Times. Now, I have seen Mr. Mayor 14 weeks ago to point this out, and I was assured that it would be corrected. But I don't want it to be left so that it's wrong because it's part of our Manx heritage.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much. That's incredible. So I'll bring that up with the housing team today, and hopefully can get that sorted. Part of the reason why we named the apartments James Brown, and I just really want to thank you and your family from travelling not only from across the island but across the UK. And some from coming in to visit us, that was incredible. That was such a lovely day. I mean, James Brown was incredible.
It was.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah.
Judith, has written it down? You can get, something will be happening.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, good to hear from you, Judith. And now, shall we take a break or shall we go on to this one? It's Marilyn who just said, what is going to happen to that skeleton on Duke Street, the iron skeleton, the empty units on Duke Street?
You mean Douglas's Eiffel Tower? It's great. I think people love it as it is. No, I mean, I think
it's like a Banksy, isn't it?
It is. It's like it's a piece of modern art. So I think we're really keen as a council to sort of see this thing completed as quickly as possible, and there needs to be some enforcement and step up in speeding. I mean, it looks like it's a bit grim at the moment, and I think it's this sort of. I 100%. I'm not fully sure as to how the enforcement action works on this specific property.
Do we know who owns it?
I know the council knows who owns it. I myself personally sitting here right now, I don't have the owner's name on the top of my head. But I think
the thing is, this was years ago, and in the meantime, that new hotel is going to be built on Douglas Promenade before this thing happens, which means you're not going to be able to get builders' wagons down at the back of it because there's going to be something there. It's been 10 years.
I know, it's unacceptable, and I think this is part of our program of so one of the things we've been really keen on is tackling derelict properties, and it's one of those things where builders for a very long time have not had an incentive to crack on and really deal with something, because if property is uninhabitable, then historically it's not paid rates. So we've changed our policy with this so that you get 2 years to do your construction work, and after then you start paying rates. You start paying for this property. You start paying for the privilege of owning property in the city centre, and you don't have the ability to just get away with this. And that, along with our other dilapidations and enforcement efforts, have seen, I think it was reported by Manx Radio earlier on this year, seen dilapidations fall by 60% in 2 years. So that active enforcement is something that we actively do, and I know that our bylaws officers and our enforcement officers are absolutely excellent, and they go out of their way to sort of work constructively with property owners to get these things sorted. But I think it's when people do see Douglas's Eiffel Tower, they want to see that finished, they want to see it complete.
So is the owner of that skeleton, the iron skeleton on Duke Street, are they paying rates?
I don't know off the top of my head as to what the process is with a specific owner. I'm going to have to look into that really and probably get back to you guys.
Okay.
I'd rather say I don't know than to say something that isn't true on air, right?
Okay. Devon Watson, leader of Douglas City Council, is with us on Mannin Line. You want to get in touch? Text, email, call and WhatsApp.
Q Plus is much more than a plumbing and heating trade counter. Come and explore the largest bathroom showroom on the island, where we're always updating our displays and stocking the latest bathroom designs and trends to make sure we have just what you're looking for. Visit Q Plus on Snugborough Trading Estate or find us on Facebook to see some fabulous bathroom inspiration. QPlus.co.il.
Direct cremation is just that. An affordable and simple cremation without all the costs associated with a funeral service. Find out more by visiting directcremation.im or phone Direct Cremations on 478 422.
Ramsey Care Products, proudly part of the community at St Paul's Square in the north of the island, supplying affordable, quality disability and mobility products. Call 627 177. Ramsey Care Products, affordable mobility solutions for you.
At Pagode Cattery, we've been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cattery, we care for our customers' cats and treat them as our own. Visit pagode.com or call 321 989.
We make oil heating easy with our range of services. Whether it's our free smart tank monitoring systems or just our efficient all-island deliveries, Ellen Bannon Fuels has it covered. Call us on 844 000 to find out more.
Manx Mobility and Onken have it all. Daily living aids, wide-fitting shoes, rise recliners, beds and scooters, including lightweight and airline-approved models. Call in and see how our expert team can make your life easier. Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill.
2 devastating earthquakes have hit Venezuela and survivors urgently need support. Please help now. Go to dec.org.uk to donate. Thank you.
The countdown to the next Isle of Man general election is officially on. On Thursday, the 24th of September, you'll get to have your say on who you think should represent you in the House of Keys. And here at Manx Radio, we've got all the information you need to help you make your choice. We'll be playing out our full interviews with all the candidates each weekday from just before 11:30, and they'll also be available as podcasts shortly after broadcast, and you can watch them on our YouTube channel. And don't forget, for everything you need to know about the upcoming election, you can head to our dedicated website. Just go to manxradio.com to find out more.
The Mannin Line with Andy Waite.
Councillor Devon Watson, the leader of Douglas City Council, is on Mannin Line. The council's borrowing £26 million for 80-plus new social housing units in the town centre. Where will this be? Is a secret location? He can't say. That's basically it. Thanks, Andy, on WhatsApp. And also, could you just reiterate, we've asked this many times, but it bears restatement, what's the council responsible for and what is it not responsible for? What do you often get complaints about that you can do nothing about?
Yeah, the main one that I really want to sort of deal on is roads and pavements. So, I mean, every day I walk home on sort of cracked pavements among houses I can't really afford. And these are 2 issues that I'm desperate to sort of see dealt with. So the main one is roads. And enforcement on roads, car parking, and the other one is pavements. And these are things that any council in the UK would deal with, but on the Isle of Man, that's sort of handled by national government.
Okay, so do you, when there is a problem, do you have to approach DOI?
Yeah.
Or does the public have to approach DOI? What happens?
So there are 2 ways of doing it. You can use the reported app, or you can get in touch with the DOI directly, either through your MHK or through a political member. I've actually found the DOI to been really, really good. If you use the reported app, you can get a pothole filled like immediately within the week. They typically tend to be very good. That's been my experience historically. I'm not sure if that's always the case, but yeah, you can use that reported app and you can get those roads and pavements dealt with. But one of the problems there is because we deal with parks, housing, street lighting, and whenever we do invest in a big park scheme, people do tend to push back and say, why didn't you fix the roads? Why didn't you fix healthcare? Why didn't you fix the pavements? And I'm like, we would love to, but that's not really our remit and that's not really our purview.
Okay. Does the Texter 094 says, does the council still employ bylaw officers? There seems to be no enforcement. Dogs running loose on Douglas Beach and particularly cycling in Strand Street.
Yeah, so I mean, I think some of these things that if you were to report these issues, we've got an extensive CCTV network all throughout Strand Street, and we work very, very closely with the police and constabulary. This is not something Douglas has to do, but it's something we do because we want this to be the safest, cleanest capital city in the world. And yeah, so if you report these issues either through ourselves or somewhere else, and you do see dangerous cycling in Strand Street, report that and we can get that dealt with and maybe sort of get some enforcement there. And yeah, we do employ bylaws officers, but if a dog is running on the beach at 11 p.m. at night, and then if a bylaws officer doesn't happen to be there at that point and there's no evidence, it's very, very difficult to prosecute that, right? So a lot of these things happen to come down to points of visibility, and we really need the public to be engaged with us in this.
Do you suggest then if people see dogs fouling on the beach, they take photos?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and hopefully pass those photos along rather than just keep them for yourselves. But no, I feel like that's, I mean, if you can find evidence of that, and ultimately, I don't want this to become a vigilante sort of curtain twitching sort of society, but at the same time is that there are public laws that do have to be followed and do have to be enforced. It's about striking that balance, and no one wants to see dog fouling, and a big part of responsibility is also accountability. If we want to see dogs in more spaces, we're going to have to start taking accountability for those who don't adhere to those laws.
Okay, and just to reiterate, and it is the law that cycling on Strand Street is not permitted.
Yeah, 100%. So if that law is being violated, deliver it to either ourselves or deliver it through to those folks in the constabulary.
Texter 666 asks, have all the new flats at Williston been allocated yet?
Yes, they've all been allocated as far as I'm aware. Yeah, the people are really happy with them. I've really loved working with the folks as we've moved people out of really bad accommodation into those new flats. They're really energy efficient, and I think people are quite happy.
Is it true that all the rent that's collected from corporation housing, council housing, goes to government, not to the corporation, who only get 25% back? Is that true?
No, not at all. So I think the rent comes to us, and then what happens is there is a deficiency payment. So the rent that we get in doesn't 100% cover the costs of social housing. So there's a small deficiency payment that is about 80% of the cost of social housing are paid for via rent, and the government pays a small deficiency. We, over the next 10, 15, 20 years, want to sort of move to a place where social housing is completely independent. It completely pays for itself. That is much better politically. It's great for taxpayers. It also gives tenants a bit more reassurance as to where things are.
Gaz on the text said, do you agree that it's going to be the wrong image of the city of Douglas and the Isle of Man to King Charles III on his short horse tram trip at the bottom of Broadway next week? And Perry just said, this is silly. We could have had the full horse tram, but the government wouldn't pay for it. What's Mr. Watson's view of the horse trams only being halfway?
Yeah, so I work quite closely with Charles Gardner in this. I consider him a friend. And one of the things we push for is to see the horse tram line fully reinstated. I think it's a bit shameful that that bid has been delayed for so long. And I think the great thing about having those horse trams extended all the way through to the end where the sea terminal is that it expands the value and the use of the asset. Half an asset isn't half the heritage. It's much less than that. So by expanding the full network, the horse trams don't just become something that you're stuck behind. They become this thing that we really appreciate and enjoy. It has been embarrassing that they only go about halfway of the prom. At the same time, this is the oldest horse tram network in the entire world, and this is something that we should value. If you don't let things get old, then you don't have that heritage long term.
Okay. Eileen's on now. Hello, Eileen. You're live with Devon Watson.
Hello? Hello?
You're live on the air, Eileen. What's your point?
Two things. I live in Williston. I'm waiting for my house to be refurbished, but they did say this year they should have been demolished years ago.
Yep.
But why can't you stop refurbishing them and start demolishing them?
Yeah, this comes down to cost. I mean, I think we need to be taking these things on a cost-by-cost basis. Obviously, there are 700 homes in Williston. Demolishing all of them and rebuilding the entire estate is something that is probably beyond the financial capacity to do. But if there needs to be broader work, I don't agree that we should only have a refurbishment that deals with the external render and how water ingresses into properties. This does extend the lifespan of these properties, but one of the things we're really, really keen to deal with is make sure that these maintenance schemes and schedules make sure that all points of social housing are decent and inhabitable. And I'm so sorry that your property isn't where you want it to be.
No, that's okay. What I meant to say as well, not just like demolish and like put rows all at once, but like stages by stages and build and put people in other houses on the other side of the estate and then move them back. That's all. And also as well, can someone put some grip bins down Douglas Town?
Grip things down. Oh, so that people don't slip.
Yeah, because this year, the last few years, it's just been like a skating rink. I go down early morning, and it was terrible. I can't just put them round with a shovel or something. And I do it right on my road in Tilmore Road. We've got a grip bin now. I just go and just put grit everywhere. But Douglas Town is terrible.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
that sounds like a good idea. I can get onto the DOI and then
who grits Strand Street then? Who will put stuff down?
I'll need to figure that one out, right? Because I mean, I usually thought that gritting was something that was dealt with by, but we do have our own like sort of snow sweeper that we use in sort of inclement conditions. But yeah, so I can sort of follow up on that one and sort of see how we can get that situation resolved either by us or by central government.
Okay, thanks, Eileen. Good to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
9 minutes to 1. A note in from Charlie here, who just says, "How often does the sweeper go down Strand Street? The Douglas sweeper, the machine."
I'd say so. It goes down fairly frequently. I mean, we
Right.
try and keep Strand Street as clean as possible. I know that our teams are fairly hard at work, and we try and pretty much go. I don't know if it's a daily or once every 2 days thing, but I think generally early in the mornings, if you're out there at like 5 or 6 a.m.,
Right.
as I am when I catch the bus to go up to Kirkmichael, you're going to see the street sweeper there in the street early on in the morning. Hard to say what happens later on in the day, but trying to get that enforcement of cleanliness is something that we're really keen on.
Okay, and also, mate, this is also from Charlie as well. Are you familiar with the hawk that used to fly up and down Strand Street?
No, not personally.
Okay,
I mean, he and I were never acquainted.
Yeah, no, because I think it was when they used to be pigeons, or whether it was gulls or whatever it was. Douglas Council used to employ somebody with a hawk that flew up, and apparently it scares birds off. If a bird of prey flies up and down somewhere a couple of times a week, do you still do that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if we have like a hawker, but like that would be so cool.
I'm trying
Could you
to
imagine
remember.
that?
No,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. There was a guy who used to have one of those leather things on his arm, and he flew a hawk up and down Strand Street. And Chaz says this because he just said there's bird muck. By some of the standards, the lamp standards.
Yeah.
And obviously there are birds that are hanging around. So he said that's the answer to it, to get a bird of prey to fly up and down.
Douglas Falconry Society, let's go. That's so cool.
Well, if anybody knows who was it used to have the bird of prey that flew up and down Strand Street. Oh, Juan's on with us now. Hi, Juan, you're live with Devon Watson.
Hey, Andy. Devon, how are you?
Hi, how are we, Juan?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just a couple of things. Just quickly, can you clarify, is it the Douglas Corporation, or City Council, I should say, or is it the DOI that's responsible for the beach down to water level?
I believe that it's us. I mean, as far as I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And also the railings on the promenade, yeah?
So the railings on the promenade are DOI.
They're DIY, right, okay. I've missed half the programme, so I don't know whether there's anything being brought up about it. But what's your connection with the DIY on fixing them? I mean, I've been on the programme, I'm sure you've listened, for like probably 4 years now. And you've got railings lying there on the promenade, which, I mean, they get booted around, they fall in the sand, they get put back up. You've got a little bit of tape goes along them. I mean, today there's like 10 coaches down there, all staying in the hotels at night time. You've got cruise liners coming in. And this is our shop window.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your connection is with the DOI on just a quick fix on getting them done. And I know there's a lot of work going to get done, supposedly on a seawall, and that's another story again, which we won't have time to discuss. But just a temporary fix of some welding just to do that. I mean, it just seems so bizarre that, for 4 years these have been lying around, and probably until someone has an accident on them, they'll just lie there. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think that we do typically tend to have a political culture of waiting for things to break or waiting for things to become a problem rather than fixing them preventatively. I mean, I think I've got quite a good relationship with the DOI. Local authorities and DOI are always going to butt heads, but we want to be constructive. But the railings are something that I bring up every single time I met with them. Met with them yesterday, brought up the railings again. As you say, this is a shop window, and I'm a big believer in that sort of broken windows theory, right? You let small things begin to fall apart and deteriorate, and that leads to broader sort of social problems down the line. I'm really keen on getting those dealt with. I assume that when part of a seawall comes in, that'll deal with some of it. But in the meantime, the rest of those railings should be dealt with as soon as possible. I think you and I are in full agreement on that one.
Yeah, and it just bemuses me that, I mean, I sit there and I see your enforcement people driving up and down the pathway every morning there, and, the railings just stay there week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, and nothing gets done. So I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a lot of stuff needs fixing. And I hear the coach drivers saying that, they're impressed with the people that come on the coach are impressed with the cleanliness of the town. And obviously we're here all the time, so we pick up on a lot more things like the back streets and stuff like that they don't see. And, the bi-weekly bins and the back lanes overflowing and stuff. But the general emphasis is, that the people on the coaches actually think it's quite clean here compared to other places that they take them.
Okay.
So that's good, but just picking up on that stuff would be great. And
okay.
The other thing as well with Nobles Park.
Yeah.
Nobles Park as well, I mean, you say it's the jewel for Douglas and everything, but it's so underused. Yeah. I think, it could be so much more pop-up events there and community stuff happening in Nobles Park. I think it's such a great place, but so underused.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I fully agree with that. And I think that's one of the things I'd like to see is that was the point of that big consultation, is that hopefully that people can feedback and we can make that a really big community asset, have more events. I mean, you go to any major park in any major town, anywhere else, and you have that investment and you have these spaces that are much, much better used.
Okay, all right, Juan, thanks for that today. I've got a final message in from, actually, Tony put this one in right at the start of the programme, and it just said, Mr. Watson talks like an MHK. Is he standing in the election? Are you standing in the election, Devon Watson?
Now that my arm's twisted, yes, I am going to be standing in Douglas Central, and my main priority is...
You've not said this before. Have you announcing it now?
I'm announcing now, right here, live on the Mannin Line. Yeah, the cost of living is absolutely too high. It's becoming unaffordable to live here. And I want to take the same ambition that we've taken with housing and investment and bring that to national government.
Now, I've got to say that Peter Shimon and Chris Thomas are also standing in Douglas Central. Well, took the wind out of my sails.
WINT.
If you have children, pets, or a house, talk to Peace of Mind about